Right, so my talk is why dry is bad. Can you please tell me what dry is?
Don't repeat yourself.
What's dry?
Boom.
There you go. Cool. So dry, yeah, don't repeat yourself. One of the first things pretty much everyone's taught. I think I even remember being in the lecture hall being like, this is what dry is. And everyone's like, oh yeah, that's great. But basically it's about being lazy, less verbose code, easier to test, better design, and don't repeat yourself. It's kind of what it is. But what it actually does is it leads to lazy programming and design, i.e., oh, just stick everything in this class, it'd be fine. Like, oh, it's a central location for all my URL generation. Brilliant, okay, but you might have 100 different ways of generating a URL. You've just put everything in one bucket. Excellent. So that's what it actually does. Utils classes. If I see a utils class, I feel very sad. They make me really unhappy and really angry, and I have many, many conversations with other developers about why they're bad. Utils classes in object orientation mean nothing. Util is anything. If you're going to build a utils, it needs to be a separate library, like string utils or num utils, or generating something to do with CSV files. Those are utils. Those are things that can be applied to anywhere in the world. You are not special in the fact that you need special string utils in your magical business thing. So it also leads to badly defined boundaries. And this actually leads more onto the microservice part, where if you've actually got repeated code and you suddenly need to actually extract it out, so say repeated business code, and you need to extract it out of your microservices, you've probably defined your microservices wrong, because if you're extracting it out and putting it into libraries, then you realize you're actually sharing it all over the place and things get a bit confusing, and actually it leads to some very bad code. Take a look and actually maybe build a microservice. It leads to a confusing structure. I've seen monoliths that have loads of utils classes that have loads of like shared code and all over the place, and you suddenly get loads of different package structures. You get loads of different things all over. It causes lots of confusion and makes very bad code. The final one is a bit of a contested one, which is inheritance over composition. I have seen, and I work for Rightmove, I've seen one of our objects called property that is inherited, I think, about 6 or 7 times. It's nested that deep. It is so much reused code, and it is terrifying to touch because you will affect so many different classes in doing so. It is painful and not worth it. It's why I'm very much in favor of composition. So much more about microservices. So it's all about them boundaries. It is. If you're going to build a microservice, make sure it's bounded. It's a bounded context. It does one thing and does one thing excellently well in the case of your business. If you are making microservices that do too many things, they need to be broken down, or what you've got is what my friends at work called a macro monolith or a mini monolith. They're going to kill me because I got that wrong. But anyway. Sharing code should not be business related. String utils is fine. Do not share code between them. And this comes in one of the major cases for this, because I talk a lot about CDCs. One of the major cases for this is your clients to request other services. If you've got a single providing service and you've got 3 consumers, re-implement the same code for the consumers to get the bits off your provider. Do not share a library that is a client library. You just don't do it. It's bad. It's bad practice. You'll end up reproducing code, and then you'll have to share version numbers. If you find a bug, you've suddenly got to update 3 or 20 microservices. Not a good call. If it really is a utility, then make it a library. There are exceptions for these. If you are reproducing code, services are badly defined, you should probably extract it out into another microservice. Also, this one's a really weird one, and I chucked this one at the bottom because it matters quite a lot. I've seen in places, and we do it, generic microservices. You'll have one that is just sort of your basic one. We call ours Eden because it's the Garden of Eden. It's fresh, right? It's great, and it was great to start with, but now it's sort of, we've now got so many things going on that actually it leads to much more confusing and complicated code. And I found that if people take something out of something, they don't learn why it was in there. If you put something in, people learn why it went in there in the first place. And that's where I go with that. Cool, so I need to speed up. So quickly, that's the other version of dry, which I invented. Business logic should not be repeated. Try pronouncing that. Enjoy. Quickly, the dry checklist. Don't repeat business logic. If it's a utility you're creating, import it as a library. Most languages have been around for ages. Import it as a library. Don't build your own. If it doesn't exist, create one and share it, because that's awesome. Redefine boundaries if you're repeating yourself in microservices, and some repetition is fine. Lazy is great, but sometimes you've just got to repeat the code, and that's fine, and that's not a problem. I think that's everything. Cool, that's me. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, there you go. Thank you.